Good evening, everybody. How's it going, Exiles? It is 1 a.m. Monday morning, technically, and we have reached the end game. So I just want to share with you guys the build that I have. I finally have something that I'm happy with. This is not a build guide for something I'm telling you to build, just how I figured out something that feels good. I haven't looked into what anyone else is playing right now. I've just kind of been building around, trying to experiment and explore. And what I will say is I was not having the most good time. If you've been watching on stream, I was a little salty around Act 2. I was doing this like hybrid lightning and fire thing. It felt fine. Act 1 felt fine. Act 2 started to drag really, really bad. I got to the Dreadnought. I was not happy. The whole Trial Master stuff was rough. I had a lot of bugs too, a lot of crashes. But the end of Saturday night, I did find this staff pretty darn nice. And I wanted to go to cold. Like if you saw my early preview stuff when I played the playtest a month ago, I showed how strong cold can be. I knew cold was going to be really good, but I wanted to do other things and try all of the skills in the game, you know, really see how fire and lightning felt. But I hit the staff and I was like, all right, we're going back to cold. So I spent last night and this morning kind of respecking into something that ended. I've been tweaking it all day into something that feels pretty good. I just want to show you guys what I have. So I will open up a quick little map here. I'm still doing tier 1 maps. I've only done like 3 or 4 maps so far. Hopefully the backwash here is not too bad. The basic idea with this is I am a chronomancer. I am using cold skills. Let me turn the volume down here a little bit. I am using cold skills, and we have a cast on freeze setup that drops comets. There's a lot of support gems. I'm not super happy with the support gems. Many of the passive points and everything, I am not super in love with either. So just proof of concept and all that. So the main thing that I'm doing is I have a Frostbolt here. You'll see I'm also using Wild Shards, which is a very cool support gem. You have a 1 in 5 chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle. This is my, basically the gas to go in the engine to then when I freeze an enemy and it totally loads up, you have to freeze a certain number of enemies to then trigger a Comet setup right here. I have Comet with impetus, just so it gains more energy, it triggers more quickly, as well as inspiration. I'm actually not 100% sure that inspiration works in cast on freeze, but just trying to save mana. Mana is like the main thing. The other thing is I've struggled to get resistances. But yeah, basically all we have to do for our general clear is cast our Frostbolt as we're walking around. It will freeze enemies and then it'll trigger the comets. And we are also on the passive tree going into as much freeze buildup as possible. The idea is we just want to freeze the enemies, keep them frozen as long as possible, and then we also have lightning warp right here to call enemies. Just to keep them off of us. We also have Frostwall right here to keep enemies behind. Also, if you cast Frostwall on the enemies and those shards explode on them, or you can manually cast Comet, explode those shards, it will deal damage based on the life of those shards. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. These are still early days right now. But yeah, that's the general idea right now. I am a Chronomancer, and I have Temporal Rift. So Temporal Rift, I'm not going to go as far as to say that I was wrong about Chronomancer, but Temporal Rift is so strong as a first Ascendancy node for getting through the campaign that I will go so far as to say that is really good. Is really good through the campaign, at the very least. What it does is it lets me, it's at a 4.15 second cooldown right now. It will totally rewind up to, I think, to where you were 4 seconds prior, and it will, if you had full life, full mana, full energy shield, it'll rewind that to where it was. So be careful, you can rewind yourself to where it was lower, but generally the idea is, you should, if you take a big hit, you're gonna have more when you rewind in time. You can also like try to dump your mana, then rewind to reset your mana pool, which is pretty cool. And yeah, that's the general idea. And then if we are fighting a harder monster, let me see if I can try to find a rare monster here. If you see that blue thing on them, that's the Lightning Warp. So Lightning Warp is just for a cull. I think you can cull a normal monster at like 30% life. It'll do a lightning thing. It will also, do this shock ground, which is really nice for just doing more damage. And I also have that link to life drain and mana drain support, so it will also recover some of your life and mana as well. Just a nice little utility gem. All right, we got a rare monster. So on a harder monster right here, so I do have Frostbite, and then I also have Frost Bomb, and that's to lower the resistance as much as possible. The idea is we want to, you know, ice wall them off. He's cold resistant. All right, perfect. Perfect demonstration. Rewind. Get my life and mana back. See if we can freeze this guy. This is like the worst case scenario. All right. Well, he's stunned. I guess he doesn't want to freeze. And then we have a manual cast spell Echo Comet for doing our, you know, basically our burst damage. If they're frozen, that's even better. Like, we basically want to freeze them, and then we have a manual cast Comet that we use for our, you know, our big damage. If you're willing to, you know, you can play a little bit differently. You can put down a frost wall in front of a pack of monsters, cast your Comet, but you can see Comet's like pretty slow, so you don't really want to do that too often. You want to be using your cast on freeze to be doing your clear right here. And yeah, I mean, that's the general idea, general playstyle. I do also have a Cold Snap here. So Cold Snap will shatter an enemy, does really big damage on the shatter. Basically will instantly kill a normal monster no matter what. But it does cost a good chunk of mana. Yeah, it costs 63 mana each. And that's why I generally use Lightning Warp, which costs very little mana, and it will also restore my mana if I get them low enough for a call. Like that. And then it puts the shocked ground down, like I said earlier. But yeah, and then we have, Frost Bomb, Frostbite for additional damage and utility, and that is the idea. So let me finish clearing this map right now, which could take a while. These maps are huge, man. You have to kill all the rares. Let me finish up this map, and then we'll go back to the base, and I'll show you all the details. All right, so let's start off by just talking about the skills. First off is you're going to need Frostbolt. When you can start this build, I'm not 100% sure. Also, apologies, this is my first time sharing a build in Path of Exile too, so I'm sure there'll be little things I'm not used to talking about, like charms and stuff like that, new things. Anyway, so the core, like I said, is Frostbolt. All right, I figured it'd be easier for me to show you the map anyway. So Frostbolt right here. This is, like I said, the main engine behind it. Also, you'll notice that I'm missing some support gems. There's more that you can put in. My main concern right now is the combination of defense and mana sustain. I don't know the tools that I have access to try to solve that entirely. Right now, I'm just trying to get more mana regen, larger mana pool, and you know, hopefully that solves it. It is starting to feel better now at about 1,000 mana. But Frostbolt is our main thing, and it is just an engine to freeze the enemies and kick off the cast on freeze. So the main idea here is I have Glaciation, and then Wild Charge is really just for mapping to hit more enemies, triggers more cast on freeze. Also freezes more enemies. It's a good defensive layer just to hit more enemies on top of that. In addition, what I would recommend is Deep Freeze if you want to put that in. 50% increased freeze duration, but like I said, my mana cost is my main concern. And as long as I can kill my enemies usually within the basic freeze duration, so that's not too necessary. So yeah, we're at 97 mana right now. If I take this out, we're down to 81 mana. So it's a big mana savings to not socket all of these gems. You may be tempted to just like always socket as many gems as possible, but I do recommend, you know, if you don't need all those gems and you have mana cost as an issue, you can socket it out. Oh, Temporal Rift right here. This is our Ascendancy. We'll talk about passive points in a minute, but we are a Chronomancer. There's probably a world, you could probably just play this on Stormweaver. I am playing Chronomancer because that's just what I was going to be playing for reasons. We'll talk about that in a future video. Chronomancer, I am playing it, and Stormweaver's probably better. We'll just start off with that. But like I said earlier, I think Temporal Rift is really, really good. And I tried Time Freeze. I did not love Time Freeze. I'm already freezing the enemies. It's not doing that much for a 1 minute cooldown. So I went into Temporal Rift and then Apex of the Moment. For my last two, I'm leaning towards Circular Heartbeat and probably Quicksand Hourglass. I don't see a world where I want to go into Time Snap and the cooldown stuff right here. That just doesn't really fit this build anyway. And I don't love Quicksand Hourglass, but hey, more cast speed, it'll feel good. I don't really care about making the recoup faster. So anyway, that's what I'm doing for the Ascendancy. But I do recommend Temporal Rift first and then Apex of the Moment. These feel really, really good for just... Temporal Rift is godlike. And then I think just slowing everything, in addition to the chill, feels really good. Okay, so yeah, Temporal Rift, you know, there's a lot of outplays you can do with it. Be smart about that. You practice it a little bit. You could probably have a whole video on how to use Temporal Rift. And then, like I said, Frostbolt, that's our next thing. You can deep freeze it if you want to, but I am using Glaciation and Wild Shards right here. Then I have Frost Bomb. Frostbomb is it puts exposure on the enemies, which lowers their cold resistance, makes them take more damage. And we have, in addition to that, strip away. So the basic exposure that it will do, so you can actually hold Alt and click on this. The default exposure is -20, and then with another 30% on top of that, pretty good, right? We're gonna get another, 6.3 minus res on top of that. It's just much more damage. The other utility that we have is hypothermia right here. This is really expensive. I don't hypothermia. Like, it costs a lot of mana. It's 192 mana for Frostbite. So I don't cast this very often, only on rare or unique monsters. But I do use Frostbomb pretty often. I try to use it more often. It costs less than half than Frostbite. So this is just really good. Get that exposure, get that minus res on there. It also pulses and hits, so it can freeze the enemies in addition to that. Cold Snap, like I said, Cold Snap is if you freeze the enemies, you can just kind of click on them, shatter them. Really good for cleaning up, frozen enemies around you. And that shatter damage can nicely clear a bunch of monsters. I have that linked to Magnified Effect for bigger AoE. And then Spell Cascade. Spell Cascade is actually really nice for it because if there's multiple frozen enemies, it can go boom, boom. And you get just bigger shatters, can hit more monsters. Good for that. So next up is Frostwall. This is just an absolutely godlike skill. These, so you can see that it will deal damage when it hits them when you initially cast it. And then when you shatter the ice crystals, I don't know if it does the exact damage that the ice crystal life is, or it's not 100% clear when I click on it, but it will deal cold damage when you shatter those as well. So the idea is you can cast some frost walls, hit it with some frost bolts, freeze the boss, and then cast your Comet on top of them. Shatter those, and then does really good damage. It does cost a good amount of mana, though. It's, again, 95 mana for this Frostbomb. Mana is a big thing. Figuring out how to balance that properly, that's going to be a hard thing with putting this build together. Haven't figured out, like, if there's just a one button press all solution for this yet. I'm still working on it. Conk Effect for more damage. Also doesn't add any mana to cost to it. Controlled Destruction. Can't crit, but it's not hitting often enough that I really care about it critting. I'd rather just the baseline damage is higher. I may change this later on, but we're using Controlled Destruction right here. And then Fortress right here is optional. So Fortress is really cool. It will actually make it cast in a circle, and you get a lot of shards. I think you might even get more shards in a circle right there. You can encircle an enemy. However, it has the very big downside of 50% less damage with hits, and we want the hits of Frostwall to be as hard as possible. So I did unsocket it. I used it for a very long time, and when I realized that it was making it do less damage, I took that out, and I noticed that I was getting a lot more value out of Frostwall without Fortress, despite the fact that, like, if you just want to use it to surround an enemy, that's really good for just blocking them off. Doing less damage, you're going to get less freeze effect and less damage, so I did remove Fortress because of that. Next up, Lightning Warp. So this is a skill that I'm just using it to cull. So if an enemy is, so you can see, you can hold Alt, mouse over this. So if a normal enemy is at 30% life, magic is 20, rare 10, or unique as at 5, you can just press your Lightning Warp on them and kill them. The cool thing is it'll also explode their body, so you can get a really flashy boss kill as well. Really good link to Soul Drain and Life Drain. Will just recover 12% of life and mana when you call them. So just good for, hey, I'm at half life, I got a bunch of monsters low, I can just press my Lightning Warp on them, call them, and get a lot of recovery off of that. Then our first reservation, I'm going to go over Arctic Armor first. We have this. It does really good base cold damage, and it is nice for, like, monsters hitting you in the back. It'll reflect cold damage onto them, and you can freeze them. I have that linked with Clarity because I have enough Spirit right here. So Clarity will just give me 30% increased mana regen. Doesn't do very much because we have so much increased mana regen, but it's just nice to have. Also, for people that are asking, the way that you get all of your Spirit, you get your Spirit from the Ritual area in Act 1. Then in Act 3, you get it from the Bog area. And then the last final Spirit that you get is from the Bog area in Cruel. You don't get any between that. So you go back to the Bog area in Cruel, you fight that witch again, and she'll drop an additional 40 Spirit upgrade. And that's how you have 100. So my two reservations are Arctic Armor and then Cast on Freeze. So Cast on Freeze I have with our Comet, of course. We have that with Impetus and Inspiration. I am not 100% sure that Inspiration works here. I could do some testing and try to figure that out, but so many comets fall, it's kind of tough to figure it out. But yeah, Inspiration is one of the most valuable gems. I have also tried just putting this in my Frostbolt, lower that mana cost significantly. That's also valid as well. That definitely works, putting it in Frostbolt there. But I'm pretty sure it works in here. It's really weird. There's definitely some things that don't work in Cast on Freeze that I tried. It said it would work, but it doesn't. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And then last up, we have our manual cast Comet. You can see it has you know, at least for my level, this is pretty high DPS compared to everything else. We have that with Arcane Tempo, just to cast it quicker. It has a very long cast time. I have a good amount of increased cast speed on my build. So yeah, you can see it's a very, very long cast time. So you want to make that as fast as possible. If I take that off, it actually goes up to 1.89 seconds. It's not that big of a difference. I might be better off actually just putting more damage in here, but that's what I'm using at the moment. And then Spell Echo is just really, really good. It's definitely worthwhile getting those 2 meteors coming out, or those 2 comets. The 30% less cast speed kind of sucks, but having 2 of them, you know, it's just double damage for that cast, which is really nice. It's also much bigger AoE, easier to hit things. If I take that off, the cast speed will go down to 1.49 seconds, which is nice, but, you know, it's not half. And then next, we are using Elemental Focus. This one I'm 100% on the fence about. Feel free to not use Ele Focus. It will not inflict elemental ailments, but the general idea is I'm freezing the enemy first, and then I'm spamming my Comet while they're frozen. And you can't freeze them when they're already frozen anyway. So this is just kind of like the easiest free damage gem that you can use. But, you know, if there's situations where you're casting it on non-frozen enemies, you don't get freeze buildup. So, you know, I'm kind of on the fence about that. There's plenty of other... There's so many support gems that are new to me in this game that I'm trying to learn them. We'll figure them out. We'll try to find like better ones. Literally have my inventory full of support gems, changing them every other pack, trying to try stuff. It's really cool. I love this experimentation. General idea is this. Feel free to play with support gems, whatever feels good to you, but this is the general idea that I'm going for. And then really quickly, I will show you guys my passive tree. I have to like new hotkeys as well, because, you know, the WASDs get in the way of my old hotkeys. So this is my passive tree. Again, I don't know if this is good. I don't know if this is like best in slot or the worst in slot. It could be anything. The main things I'm going for are elemental and freeze damage, freeze buildup, cast speed, any quality of life that I can get in addition to that. But yeah, mana regen, mana regen, mana regen. And then, yeah, that's that's what we're going for. We also want to get as much stats as possible. You'd actually need pretty darn high intelligence. This is something that was not true in PoE 1. But you need, as you level up your gems, they require a ton of intelligence. In PoE 1, that capped out pretty low, like, you know, 100, 120 of the stat, and you basically can use a level 20, 21 gem. This game, it really wants you to have a lot of intelligence, right? I need 133 int to use this level 14 Comet. You actually need a lot of stats in this game, so be very careful about that. That's why, you know, you can just go to the hooded one or whatever the NPC is in the zone that you're in, change these around, get your stats all set up. Not super in love with this area. This is a lot of travel, but it is pretty good value within here. One of the few places on the tree where you can get some res, dense amount of damage right here. Because we are just chilling and freezing, I don't really care about breaking point that much, and I don't value penetration. Never thought I'd say that. I don't value penetration that much in this game right now, for this build anyway, because I am already lowering the res so much. And in this game, you can't pen below 0 res, as far as I understand. I have some pen. I have a little bit right here, but I'm not really valuing it that much. So yeah, I basically just typed in cold damage or freeze, and I took the cold damage, cold damage, cold damage, mana regen, cold damage, cold damage. I do shock a decent amount. This is a thing that I did because I have damage as extra lightning. That's the only reason I took this. I do shock fairly often, so I took those nodes, more freeze buildup, more mana regen. These nodes are actually pretty high value. So we get freeze buildup, we get mana regen, movement speed, skill speed, which I think is like action speed in PoE 1. Cold skills have a very high base crit, so this is kind of just free damage. Like I'm definitely critting every 8 seconds, so this is just a straight up 36% damage. I am considering going into a little bit of crit. That might be my next scaler for pushing my damage to the next level. I'm not 100% set on this. I think I might be trying to get into Energy Shield as a defensive layer, or I might try to go into Recoup. There are these Recoup nodes right here, but they feel pretty low value. They might be okay, but that's a lot of points. So we got Recoup right here, and then we got Recoup right here. I might think about those. I might go into Energy Shield. I am not sure. This is just the baseline. Feel free to... I don't have a POB planner or anything. Feel free to take a picture of this. I'll see if there's a POB planner or like something I can link. I'll try to link it below if I can find it. But this is what I have right now. Cold damage, mana regen, all of that. And yeah, I guess quickly go over the gear. Oh yeah, charm, you know, you just want biggest flash as possible. Charm, my chaos res, I just have a chaos res charm. And then cast speed, life, res, whatever you can get on your gear as much as possible. This is all generic gear. I did find this amulet in Act 6, which is really nice. +1 all gems. Do value rarity a lot. helps a lot with the drops. Strongly try to get as much rarity as possible. And then the staff, like this is basically what brings it all together. I probably wouldn't put this build together until you found a decent staff. I will say that. You know, you can go for a wand and a shield if you get good wand and shield as well. But, you know, a good staff that has spell damage, cold damage, level of cold gems is like the most important. Cast speed, mana regen, all of that. And yeah, anyway, how you guys feeling about PoE 2? It really started to click for me. Really, man, Act 2 really dragged for me, but really when I got to Act 3, it started to feel good. I loved those boss fights. Definitely the zones are a little bit too big. The balance of stuff is a little bit off for like your character power. But once you get a build that's like, you know, you're triggering stuff, the whole screen's blowing up, you feel like you're playing Path of Exile. I love this world. I love these bosses. It's a beautiful game. And I think it's a great foundation. They cooked, you know, it's not perfect. There's a lot of flaws, but I think this is going to be a special game for many years in the future. So yeah, anyway, that's it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go get this video out for you guys really quick and hope to see y'all on stream tomorrow. And we're going to keep blasting and checking out that end game. All right. See y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.